All right, it's time. So we're going to go ahead and start our studio review. This was a fun one. This is kind of a continuation. I mean, obviously, of what we've been working on, focusing in on time leaf. And so the high-level things we are going to. Oh, yes. Um, the screen's nowhere. Give me 1 second. Looks like it got unplugged. Sweet. All right, cool. Thank you for calling that out. And we're live. Cool. So we're going to do three things. Essentially, we're going to display data about the user. We're going to display a table, an HTML table of the appropriate facial treatments determined by the computer. And then we're going to display the description for the manicures and pedicures, and that's where we'll get into our if statements. I already did the setup for this, so I cloned and forked the repository. And so I have it here in IntelliJ, everything's loaded. Okay, so the first thing, so in controllers, we have one controller, spot A. It's just giving us some additional, this is the actual actionable item right here. So we need an H2 that says my profile, and then these three tags. Sorry if my enter here seems a bit scattered. So we'll go over to menu. Now, I did make a small change, and this was just for styling purposes, is I put all of this inside of a section, and then I styled the section. So what we need to do is, I believe it's inside of client profile, is we need these things. Something that says my profile, H2, my profile, and then we need a P tag, and the text of this equals, so we need the value of name. I'm going to just assume that the value we're passing into the form is just name. I'm making a guess here. Then we'll do the same thing for skin type, and then the same thing for mani-pedi. Now, before I reload and rerun this application, I do want to see the before this change. What does that look like? And then we'll see the after. Okay, so before this change, we have a form. Just going to keep the default options. I press submit. You can say there's some changes to the styling, but nothing's showing up. So maybe it's because I haven't refreshed the application. We'll find out. Let's refresh the application. And stuff's showing up. That's awesome. I thought it wouldn't. Let me double check something. That was supposed to be a, oh, look, it didn't work. Example. Oh, of course. Sorry, my brain hasn't caught up yet. My brain's here. So what happened was in here, I was missing some syntax. I was missing the dollar sign and then the curly brackets. Apologies. Okay, so now if I rerun the application, what it was doing was it was setting the text to each of these paragraph fields to literally just the text that I passed in. So it's setting the text to name and skin type, etc. And so now I'm going to refresh, try this again, and now I don't have anything. And so I can refresh this page as many times as I want to, and I'm not going to have anything until I pass data to the timely form. Because we have half of it right now. We have a section of the timely form that references data that's being passed into it, but we have not yet passed in the data. So we will jump over to our spot A controller, and now we need to add the data. It's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to reformat this right here. Cool. All right, so we need name, skin type, and mani-pedi. So we'll say, I'm just going to do it right here. Model dot add attribute, and we can name this. I'm going to start with name because I know I put that in the form, and I'm going to put in name, which corresponds with the value being passed in. I'm going to do this again 2 more times. I want this to match what is on my form, because if the words don't match, it's not going to work, and it's not going to complain very well. That's one thing that's a bit tricky about this, in my opinion, is that if I have a typo here, it's not going to say you have a typo. It's just going to assume that I know best in all of my typos. So let's see here. We have skin type, mani-pedi. Jump back to so that corresponds with skin type mani-pedi. That looks right. I'm gonna refresh and refresh here. Cool. So I've got 3 things. The text is kind of small because I changed it. It's kind of hard to see, but hopefully that's visible. So we got name, skin type, and then manicure, pedicure. Cool. So just a quick pause. We just kind of went through the flow of feeding data into the form, and then the form into the template, the timeless template, and then the template referencing it and displaying it. Any questions or feedback on that process or anything up until this point of Studio? No. Okay. So we will move forward. So we've accomplished this. Now we have to do something else. We need to list all appropriate facial treatments. And so I'm going to head back to the HTML, check out the empty div, service menu. Okay, kind of know where that's at. Add a table and add rows for appropriate facials. Let's look. So I want to point something out real quick in this code. The code that we were given has this check skin type method built into it. And we kind of have to read the code to kind of see what this does. But it basically, you pass in a skin type and then a facial type, and it'll do some checks and then return, ideally, one of these 3. It'll return like a recommendation. So from there, it gets fed into this array list. So this calls the appropriate, the check skin type method, and then it adds it to the appropriate facials array list. And so all that's done for us, which is very nice. And so now what we need to do is to take this array list, pass it into our timely form, and then we're going to loop through it. So in the same way as before, we'll say model add attribute. We need a name for it. I'm just going to name it as the variable's named to keep it consistent. Okay, so the data is passed into the form. Now we need to reference it, do stuff with it. So in services menu, let me get just a bit of a clear idea of what it's asking for real quick. Add a table. It doesn't mention. Okay, we'll just add a table. So tables are a bit clunky in HTML. You got to figure out all the syntax. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to start off by just using a p tag for each item. So we will say, let's see here, th block. Then we'll do th each, not for, as I messed up during lecture. Then we'll add the syntax there in just a moment. And then we will say for each, I don't know what to call them yet, item inside of Then I think we need this. That looks right. I hope. We'll do P. And then we'll do th text equals $item. The point of this is I don't want to overcomplicate things before I can prove that they're working. So I want to just see if I can generate a bunch of paragraph elements and see if it works how I assume that it does. So we will start this, press submit. And it looks like it's doing basically what I want it to. We've got these two paragraphs of what they're recommending. So now that I can prove it works, now I'm going to complicate it more by adding the table syntax. So, because my brain's not good at remembering syntax, generally speaking, I'm going to Google it, which is totally okay. So we're going to say HTML table example. W3 School is a great resource for. Okay, so we have table. Within the table, we have table rows for TR. We have something called TH, which is a table header, and then TD, which is a table element. I'm not sure what the D stands for there. So here, we don't want to generate an infinite number of blocks or an infinite number of tables or an X number of tables. We only want one table. And so we're going to put the table on the outside of the loop. Table. And then we're going to move this inside the loop. Okay. And then now I am going to add, we'll keep it simple first. We need a table row. Table row. And then this is going to become the table elements. Let's refresh this, just see if it's working how we want it to. Gonna refresh. I think it is. It doesn't have like a lot of table styling. It looks right. We got the table, kind of just automatically generate the T-body thing. We have our table rows. I feel like I'm missing some styling that would be appropriate for a table. Just a quick gauge of the room is, for those of you that made the table, does this look right? Or am I missing something? Looks good? Looks good? Okay. Got a thumbs up. I'm going to take that. Here's what I'm going to do real quick, though. I'm going to take my table CSS and I'm going to do just not even there. I'm just going to say TD. I'm going to say border 1 pixel wide. It's a solid border, and the color is a gray. Refresh that and just see if it makes it look more like a table. A little more. I'm not sure what the padding is. I think it should probably be TR, not TD, for table row. Let's refresh. So here's an interesting thing for debugging styling. If I click on the table row, I can see the styles applied to it. And I can see that it is, in fact, applying this border style I gave to it. I can click on computed to see the absolute truth of like after everything's said and done what the styling looks like. And it definitely has borders. I'm not going to get hung up on this. We can come back to this later. I just wanted to see it look like a table. But we'll come back to it. I don't think it would be good for me to spend the whole time working on this. All right, let's see here. What I'll do to just keep it happy is I'll say that TD elements are just going to have a slightly different background color. So we're going to say background color, I think this is good. Yeah, okay. So we can just see that they're on items. Right. Let's back spotty controller, back at our HTML. looks right. I'm going to add another table row. Instead of here, I'm going to add a table header. And this is going to have one item in it. And this is going to be refresh. That should be a TD. Refresh. I got something off. We'll worry about that later. But quick pause for questions as far as like how I got to this point, or anything else. Any questions? No. Okay. Cool. So now we have our last item, which is going to be the thing that requires the use of our, I'm going to call them artifacts, but they're fragments. The use of our fragments and then the use of an if statement. Just refresh this real quick for my own sanity. Awesome. And then mani-pedi. So we're just going to put this below here. I'm going to use a th block, and then we'll do a th if, and that equals if I need to think about what's being passed into this. So we have a mani-pedi variable being passed into our menu. So we can say if mani-pedi. Then I think we can do something either like equals, or it might be more appropriate to do equals. And then we have two different options, which would be pedicure, and the other one would be manicure. That looks right. I think I can use single quotes here. I think that would be appropriate. And then I'm just going to do test. All right, let's just see if we have anything working right now. Go back here, refresh. It doesn't like it. I've got something broken. Parsing exception could not parse as expression. Mani-pedi equals manicure. Does not like that. Quite possibly. Thanks for the suggestion. Let me try that. Let's refresh. Yay, thank you. All right, and down here I do see I have test show up. So I have a good feeling that my at this point my my if statement's working. So now we're going to go ahead and pull in the fragment. I really can't stress enough how good it is to try to rule out your assumptions as many times as you can as you're coding, as opposed to writing a bunch of code and then testing it. It's a good pattern to do smaller steps. So let's see here. We want to say we want to reference the fragments. So we'll start off with P, and it's like th. Syntax escapes me. Let me double check. Replace. Okay, so th replace equals, and then from here we will say, I believe in this project they are called fragments. Yep, fragments right here. So replace fragments, and then we'll do our double colon here, and then if it is, let me see what the fragments are called. I'm going to look this up. Fragment equals manicure description. If fragments, so we're going to, okay, cool. And then we will close this. Now I could do the opposite. If it equals pedicure, I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to do the unless statement. Do the opposite, and then we will grab this, copy, paste. Cool. And so this should provide our manicure and pedicure code blocks. Refresh. Or not. Okay. Error resolving fragments. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I added these erroneously or inappropriately to the fragment section. So go ahead and erase that. Erase that. Let's rerun it. I think this should be right at the finish line here. Continue. Sweet. So it gives us our blurb down here as far as like if it's a manicure. And then just to prove that the option, like the other scenarios make sense, we're gonna have to switch all this up. Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. So the implementation is not perfect. We probably work on a few other elements of this, but generally speaking, this covers like the intent of the studio. So before we break for the evening, questions, thoughts, comments on the studio? No? Okay. Well, sincere thank you for everyone that participated in all the crazy camera stuff. We really appreciate it. And